Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have a gorgeous guest with me, and I think everybody is going to want to hear what she has to say because she has some insights on the copy of your website, the copy of your messaging to magnetize those clients that you really want to work with. So, welcome to the show, Kayla. Kayla is a copywriter and messaging strategist for creatives, service providers, and founders who want words that build a deeper connection and bridge to their audience. She helps people find the words that tell their stories, signal their convictions, and attract the kind of clients they crave into their world naturally. Kayla, I don't know a founder or a service provider that doesn't want that. Welcome to the show.
So excited to be here.
Oh, amazing. So, as most podcasts start off, just share with us a little bit about how you got into this work before I start picking your brain about all your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I have a background in literature. So, I went to school for it. I was an English major. I went to grad school. And during that time, I did a lot of internships and, various like working for, I worked for a literary magazine. I very randomly had a real estate column one time. I did a lot of freelancing and just like lots and lots of stuff. I also you know, taught English classes, tutored. Like I kind of just like touched everything that I could to really build up my skill and build up my craft. Like I have just been like a lifelong writer. It's something that's always been a part of me, and I just couldn't imagine doing anything else. And so once I got out of school, I thought about going, a few different routes, the academia route, journalism route, um, so many different ways. Marketing ended up kind of like presenting itself to me. I got into copywriting, and that happened, not too long after grad school. And, it was something I hadn't taken classes for it in school, but what I had done a lot of is writing craft, writing stories, writing essays, writing articles. And so I was really well versed in like the storytelling and the words. And, what I've built over the last 8 years is, learning the strategy and the conversion and sort of like bridging these different worlds and kind of pulling them together. And so, now in my work with clients, that's something that really informs my approach is that, storytelling and literature, and then bringing in, conversion and psychology and messaging and like all of these pieces to really make the words in your brand work for you.
Yeah, yeah. I love a lot of the people that I meet in my work in the podcast are at that transition, are at that stage where it's like they have just collected all these strands and now they're making it into a beautiful bow. They're just taking their life's work, everything they have learned over years and years and years of perfecting their craft, like you say, and now they're sharing it with the world. And I just think that's the most beautiful thing because you look back and you go, oh, that's why I needed to take that class. Oh, that's why I needed that job because I needed a puzzle piece for what I'm doing now.
I
So
feel that so much.
yeah, it's kind of like this is our big girl job now. The rest were all some kind of training. So
Exactly.
tell me about copywriting. There's this idea that you're using your words, you're using your story, it's the language that you bring through to show people your essence, to build trust, to show your authenticity. And it's quite a lot to do in a one-page landing page on your website. Where do you start with people?
First of all, I have to say, I love the way that you define it. Like you defined it so elegantly. And I think that that's like all of those pieces are like, I resonate with that so much is like there really is so much that goes into it. And, I think sometimes we can think, like I'm always telling people, like, copywriting isn't just words on a page. It's so much deeper than that. So I just really resonate with everything you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that like, there's so many pieces that go into it. So I, work with people a lot on their, the brand messaging, their website copywriting, their sales and landing pages, and, all of these different things, on their website, but also like how they're, communicating throughout their brand. Like it's so many pieces. It's what's on your website, but it's also like, how are you talking about yourself out there in your marketing? I mean, I think it's even like, podcast topics, or, what are you writing about on your Substack? Like there's so many different pieces to it that all come together. So I think what I would say, like, in terms of like, if you're thinking, okay, I have this one landing page, what do I do? I think we can, it's like, it's both, there's so much that goes into it and it's so important. But on the other hand, like, we can't necessarily like boil it all down or say everything in like one headline or one section of a page or one landing page, but we can, it's about building trust and starting conversations and, letting people see who you are and how you communicate. And, I think it's also about understanding like what your people are saying. Like when I work with people, it's really an intersection between, their voice and their perspective and who they are, but it's also like, what are your people saying? How do they talk about their struggles and challenges and successes? And, what's going to make them buy now versus, going, I'll wait till later. Like really finding the urgency there. Like what will make them be like, yes, this is right for me. This is the right time. So it's like, it's such an intersection of things, but I think it's also like not putting like so much pressure on one headline, one landing page, one thing. It's like something you build over time as well.
Yeah. It's like everything in life, it's duality. It's walking that middle way. It's trying to convey the depth of who you are, trying to interpret your language into their language. And at the same time, it's trying to not be too serious about all of that and not put too much pressure on yourself. Those of us, I used to be an overthinker, a perfectionist. Most people who resonate with that kind of identity are hard workers. They can get things done. They can put the hours in. So you can almost exhaust yourself by trying to get it right and trying to perfect it. And then I would like to later on pick your brain about AI, but I think that has been a mirror for us as well. The temptation is to just dump your information in there and get something back. But personally, I think we need the human behind it. We need the story. So how do you tease somebody's story out of them? Because we all have one, but it's so natural to us that we think, oh, nobody wants to know that. How do you tease that out of somebody?
I would say by like asking good questions. I think that it's totally true. A lot of my clients come in and, I think founders more generally are just like, oh, I'm not that interesting. Like, I started my business and I'm here and this isn't that exciting. Like, I mean, sometimes I even do that to myself too, because, I'll look and be like, I sent out an email to my list yesterday. I'm like, I'm just a normal person over here. Like, I'm, just over here doing my thing.
Yeah.
And like, I think we can kind of like talk ourselves down or talk ourselves out of things and sort of think like, oh, I'm not that interesting. And what I always find is when people like share their stories, it's always like a conversation, just having a conversation, just hearing where people started, asking good questions, being curious. And there's always something, even if people think, oh, I don't have that thing, I don't know what it is. There's always something. I always hear people's stories and I'm always amazed. And, I think something the cool thing about entrepreneurship is there's so many different ways in. There isn't like one definitive way, like go to business school, come out, start a business, boom, you're done. Like, or, go to the corporate world, do the corporate thing, boom, start your business. Like there's so many paths in. And like your story, like I always love to ask people things like, where did your love for this come from? What was your path into this? Because some of that stuff, it's so revealing in the best way. And I think it can show so much about like what we value and what we love and, why are we choosing to be here? Because I know, like, I don't know if other founders are like this, but I think so. Like, I've had so many times where I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Like, I should just go try to have like a normal job. Like, this is crazy. But then, for a long time I told myself like, oh, I don't have a choice. I have to be here. And it's like, no, I really don't. Like, you choose to have your business and build your business and stay with it and, try the things that you're going to try. And it's like something that I find is a common thread in the entrepreneurs I work with is like, people stick with it because they love what they do. They love the freedom. They love the flexibility. They're saying, they could never go back, or they'll say things like, I'm basically unhireable at this point because, I just love my business so much. And so finding the stories underneath that, like what sort of brought them to that point, like not just the highlight reel moments. I mean, I want to know that too. I want to know what people are really proud of and the highlight reel moments and, amazing client results and, all that like cool, flashy stuff is great. But like, you also want to know like, where were the struggles, where were the failures, like where were the moments where you almost quit, where were the times when you thought, why am I here, why am I doing this? Because I think that reveals so much about why are you here doing this thing, and then how can you talk about that in a way that does kind of illuminate that for people, where they go, oh wow, okay, this person like really loves it, they really get it, they can help me. I can trust them,
They've really been there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love asking people what that moment was. So you don't know you're in the moment at the time, but when you look back, you can often go, oh, that was the moment I pivoted or I switched or something dropped in or the idea came or I understood something. And I love asking like, what was that moment? Because often it will come down to a single moment that changes the trajectory of, your career or your business. And I also think, now I just wanted to add this about what you were saying before I carry on. I think when you are in those moments where you're going, oh my God, should I just give up? Should I just go and get a 9-to-5 job? I think for me, because we've all had them, for me, it was always helpful to allow all possibilities. So I would sit there and go, okay, what if this doesn't work? And just allow that to be a possibility. What if it does work? And allow that to be a possibility. And what if it works better than I could have imagined? So all the possibilities are there, and it stops you feeling so much resistance. And then I just kind of sit with all the options. And then you get to the option of it doesn't work, I'll go do something else. And your heart just shrinks like, no, that is not my option. But for some people, it might be that it takes the pressure off and you give them permission to go, actually, this isn't working. I'm going to try something else. So I think, that's helpful for people to know. But I wonder if from your point of view, when you are in your own business and you're in the thick of it and it's so close to your heart and it's your mission, it's your passion, it's everything rolled into one. And sometimes you're so close to it that you can't see stuff. You just can't see it. And so I wonder if it's really helpful to have someone like you on board who can just go, okay, well, I'm talking to you now and I'm getting this vibe from you. But when I look at your Instagram, I don't get that same vibe. Or when I look at your website, it's not the same vibe as your Instagram. And it must be so helpful to just have those objective eyes on your stuff. Do people find that useful?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is having that outside perspective. I mean, it's the old thing people always say, you can't see the label from inside the jar. Like, I work with people, I'm saying all the time, like, the clients I work with, they're very capable, they're very talented, they're very smart, they're here doing their businesses, and it's like they can figure out a lot, and I'll even have people say, I feel like I'm a pretty good writer, but like this is just like doing a number on me and I just can't figure this out. And so, I've worked with people who, they're like, strategists themselves, or, maybe they do some writing for their clients, or what they do is like deeply like artistic and creative, or, in very close like collaboration with their clients. And they're just like, they know there's something there. And even like beyond that, they also know that like the presence that they're putting out into the world is just not reflective of like who they are and what they can do. And it's like, I'll see, their questionnaire, and I'll hear them on their call, and I'll look at the work they're doing. And I'm just like, yeah, this is not being reflected, which is crazy because, I can look at them and go, I know they're so talented, and I know like the world really needs what they have. And yeah, it is. I think that's like the biggest thing, is that outside perspective, because you can kind of like, I find that people kind of know, not everyone, but I know some people kind of know some basics or some like best practices, around copywriting, but, they're going like, I'm just spinning my wheels. I'm circling the drain, like trying to figure this out, and just getting to a point where like, what I'm writing, the words that I'm finding are just not reaching that level. And I think it is like, sometimes we are too close. And I think we can, there's real value in writing for yourself and having like ownership over it. But then there's also those times when you're just like, no, I need that outside perspective. I need someone else to see me and look at me from another perspective. 100%.
Yeah. And I think so many of us are going through so many evolutions really, really quickly, that we are expanding into new identities and new levels, and it's going really quickly. And so maybe your Instagram has had a little upgrade or a little refresh, and then you go onto your website and you're like, oh, that's really dated. And you only did it a couple of months ago or whatever. Yeah. That's really dated now. And so really to keep the same standard across all your different platforms is really a task. And I think that's where the capacity as an entrepreneur comes in. I will be so honest with you. When I first started, I remember looking at people who made reels and created a separate reel cover. And I remember thinking, oh, that is a step too far. And I remember watching their stories, and they were adding music to their stories. And I was thinking, that is a step too far. And I look back at that version of me. I absolutely love her, bless her. And now you're on like multiple platforms, and everything's elevating at the same time. But that is the muscle as an entrepreneur, isn't it? It's building the capacity to be able to hold more of your clients, serving them at the depth that you want, calling in the level of clients that now match where you are, and still running your business in the background. And for me, it's super, super important to still run my home. For many, many years, I neglected myself and my home. And now it's really important that I'm present across all of those things. I'm fully present. I'm fully here. I'm fully enjoying myself. I'm in the highest level of service for my business, but also in my home. And it takes a while as an entrepreneur to grow that kind of, capacity, to be able to not juggle it all, but to be able to hold it all. So to have somebody like you by your side to just help you navigate some of that stuff must be invaluable.
Oh, thank you. I hope so. I want it to be. And I think it can be. I mean, I think you explained that, like, not just a juggling act, but like holding, what you can hold, what your capacity is. And I think that's something that, like, even like years and years down the road, like being an entrepreneur, it's like something that you can, still struggle with, because it is a lot that we have to do, building that, personal brand, and building trust, and, marketing our businesses, and working with clients, and, like you said, kind of still having a life and sanity outside of all of that too.
And so many of us, I mean, you came from a literary background, I came from a health background. We spent years and years and years perfecting that part and then realized we knew nothing about business.
Yeah.
And
So
so,
true.
and then that ends up being a whole new playground. But we all seem to have this mentality of, oh, I'll figure it out. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Yeah, I feel that so much. It's like, I feel like the people who know business, it's like it's kind of tricky because having like the like what you do or the creative part down is one thing, and then there's like running a business and getting leads to your business, and there's so much that goes into it. It's kind of crazy. Like I joke like, wow, if I had known that, like, would I have gotten into this? But you know what, I almost think it's good that I didn't know it, because I think it would have psyched me out too much. I would have been like, oh wow, I can't do that too, that's so,
Yeah.
that's so hard. So it's like it's almost good that I didn't know like
Yeah.
how much it would take, and how things like, I don't know, sometimes things can like look really easy and end up taking more time, you
And
know?
like you say, people are only sharing their highlight reel. They're not,
Yeah.
it doesn't make a pretty picture when you're sitting on the kitchen floor going, oh my God, this is hard. So we are only seeing people's highlight reel. But I think there is this movement towards authenticity.
Yeah.
Um, People want to see real people. They don't want to see as much of the flashy, polished perfection as they did before,
Yeah.
which is wonderful because, most of the people that I work with, they're not from a modeling background, they're not from a fashion background, they're not from a
Yeah.
dancing showgirl background. They're from really grounded, mostly healers, therapists, that kind of thing. Um, and so they don't want to show up in that way because it's not natural to them. So
Yeah.
I think they're really glad that there's this movement towards authenticity. And I wanted to ask you what your opinions on AI are um, with regards to that. So how can we use it responsibly? Where to use it? Where not to use it? Um, and how can we showcase our voice, our authenticity, so that it cuts through all of this AI noise? That's a
Oh
big
my
question.
goodness. Yeah. No, it is, but I think we're all thinking about it right now.
Mm.
It's such a huge thing that's going on right now. And, I think it's been like so hard seeing that come up, and, feeling like, creative work or human, you know, creativity is being, threatened by AI. I think it's been like so scary. I mean, I'll be honest, like I'm afraid of it. I'm wary of it. I don't like what it's doing to the environment. I don't really like the fact that, you know, it's wiping out, like you keep saying, like these companies in the headlines that are like firing workers so then they can just go spend money and resources on AI. And I just think, what are we doing to the world? Like why is this happening? Why are we doing this? Like I think in so many ways, honestly, like I would not mind if it just got like pitched, into some dark hole and like never, if we could just not have it anymore. That would be amazing. When I kind of see like I'll see funny things where it's like, AI search will make funny gaffes or make funny mistakes. And I'm like, see, like it's not a human. I'm just so for human creativity. Like, I see people talking about, I'm really passionate about it, especially in like in books, in writing and art, in publishing. Like, it made headlines when, Anthropic, um, you know, they made headlines for, feeding books into its LLM, and, a lot of authors, got some like, settlement money from it. I don't know how much, but that was a big thing where it's like, you know, a lot of their work is being fed into, you know, LLMs. It's being taken away. Like people's like hard work that they spent years on is being like, you know, taken away from them and fed into machines. And, you know, I think that's so unethical. And there's just so many problems with it. And I think that, you know, even though people say, oh, it's exciting, or, you know, we need to use it, or, you know, you're going to get replaced by someone else who uses it, you know, all this, like, I'm so tired of that kind of dialogue, because I just think like, I don't think it like really gets at the nuance. I mean, I think unfortunately, like AI is here, it's been integrated into like all our tools. Like I know when I use Google Drive and like Google Workspace a lot, like it's all like totally integrated into that, like every single tool in my CRM, like it's kind of there. It's like part of our everyday now, unfortunately. But I've kind of come to this point where I'm like, I don't have to like let it take over like my human creativity or my human ideas. I think that people really want to hear from people. And I kind of feel like if there are people that don't want to hear from people and they just want the AI version, they're probably not my people. Or, you know, if people like I love the M dash, for example, and people are always like, oh, if you use the M dash, you're just using AI. And I'm like, well, if people think I'm using AI and they just see an M dash, then that's fine. They're not my people. I don't need to make them happy. I don't need to make everyone happy. Mm-hmm. So I think I kind of fall on the side of like, you know, I mean, I use it for some things. Like I really like Gemini for like call recordings and transcripts and summarizing my calls. Like I remember when I was like an intern at like a City Weekly magazine, and I had to like type out like interviews. That's how I learned to type like 100 words per minute. Yeah. And oh my God, it would take me hours. It was so tedious. Like it's so great to never have to do that again. And I think that there are, you know, I've had it like help me with, you know, like writing emails, not email marketing, but like if I'm just trying to like write a quick response, like someone has a question or something like that, it might help me with something like that. But for any of my like creative work, I really don't like to dive too much into it, because I think that like I've played with it and I've experimented with it a little bit, and like I end up like going through a few rounds with it and going like, no, like it didn't really have that great of an idea. I think I'm just going to use my idea. But thanks. Like, so it's just one of those things. I don't like seeing like human creativity be replaced. You know, I think that we need to have like our words and our marketing and our messaging and our branding and design and, you know, all this stuff. I think it really needs to be done by real people. And I think the people who understand that are really going to stand out in the coming years and right now, really, because, okay, yeah, Claude can build a website, but they all kind of look the same, you know?
It's so interesting. I'm with you. If we could just not have it, I would be there. But I have to just understand that it's not going anywhere. I have to just admit that it's not going anywhere. So how can I use it responsibly? And like you, I was very late to the party. I resisted for a long time. And then I had a little dabble, and it confused me. It confused me. I lost my own voice. I lost my own message. You know, it's so easy to end up down a road that you didn't want to go down. So sometimes, and I'm very careful with what I say and do, I never give it any intellectual property. I only ever give it something that I'm going to share publicly anyway, but I don't ever give it stuff that's not public. But sometimes I have used it to practice my voice. So I will give a little riff, and then I will say, you know, I don't know, what is my ideal client thinking at 3 a.m. based on what I've just told you? And if it gives me things that I think my client is thinking about, then I know I've articulated it well. So that's how I use it. I don't ever go, please write me a post on that. But as a kind of sounding board. So I'm a Manny Jen. And
me too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I need to wait to respond. So the way I use it is it gives me something to respond to, and I'll go,
Mm.
oh no, that doesn't feel good. This feels good. That feels in alignment. That doesn't feel in alignment.
Oh,
Um,
that's such a good idea. Yeah, I'm that way too, and I'm always trying to feel out like what does that feel what does that feel like? I think that's like such a challenge with being a Manny Gen is like having to have the information to respond to, and that's always like so tricky because I think that we're not in the world. I don't think we're like taught to do that. It's like we're sometimes like pressured to make that decision without kind of consulting that.
yeah, yeah. So I use it as that kind of thing sometimes. And the way I've chosen to look at it is it's a pressure. It's a pressure on humanity. Some people are going to cave under the pressure. Some people are going to use that pressure to dive deeper into their humanness. They're going to
I like
use
that.
that external pressure to be more authentic and more human and more creative and pull out more art, like you say, um,
Yeah.
under that level of pressure. But there will be people who will love it and use it and integrate it. But I think there's a section of society that will use that to go, I am human and divine. This thing is, I'm going to say not. This thing is
Yeah.
not. um, and so, how can I use that to reflect more of my humanness to me? Um,
Ooh, that's
so
so good.
that's how I've chosen to square peg round hole that whole situation because it's not going anywhere as much as I wish that it was.
I know. Yeah.
How can we use it to make us better humans? So, with that in mind and tying everything that we've been talking about together, just is there something you can leave listeners with? Um, Say they are creating a reel or they're on their Substack, like you say, or they're thinking of a podcast title, or they want to write something on their, let's say, their about page. Um, how can they really bring their story forward? What are the things that you like to see on that kind of page so that their humans can go, oh, I can feel this. AI didn't write this. I can feel that this woman wrote it. What are some of those like just quick, easy wins that people can can maybe integrate into their content or their website just so that their human is felt on that page.
Yeah,
Again, a big
100%.
question.
Yeah, I mean, I know something I always like to do is like, I try to like ask myself, questions. I do a lot of like, journal and brain dumping. Like, I will open up my notes app. I really like, I'll go into my Evernote and I try to get out of my Google Docs because I feel like, oh, like that's where I write for a lot of my clients. So I like get into my notes app where I'm like, okay, I'm just saying something, I'm just writing something, whatever, like this, the pressure's off. And I
Mm,
try to, so, kind of going to somewhere, someplace or something in you that you can kind of like take the pressure off and kind of figure out what you really think. And um I think answering those questions, asking good questions, um doing sort of brain dumps. I know sometimes like I don't know that I'm circling around an idea until I go and, sort of type it out. Or it's kind of funny. I'm a verbal processor too. So sometimes when I'm in the car, I will, voice note and like here's an example of using AI. Like it will transcribe it for me and sometimes it will even summarize it, and it's really interesting for me to go and kind of see, okay, what were some of the things I was talking about? Like, was I talking myself in a loop? Did this make sense? Was this actually a good idea? So I find sometimes that verbal processing can be really help, and just kind of like getting getting to some like core ideas that you can, sort of build conversations out of. And I think that like you can definitely like use your messaging as like a North Star, like really thinking about those, core things that, you want to be talking about, and having, a lot of the things you talk about kind of tie back to them. And that doesn't mean, I think that like, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, like brands evolve and grow and founders evolve and grow. And so like things will kind of change, and you'll think of ideas that like you might have your messaging in its original form. And then as you go and create and write and do things, like it will sort of evolve and become something else. Like I'll kind of give an example of this. Like for me, like I have a freebie called Trust Triggers, and it's all about like how to build like more trust in your copywriting. And it's one of those things like I didn't really like until, everything happened with like the trust recession. It wasn't like at first that was kind of happening, and I was like, wait, what do I do? How do I respond to this? I don't really know. Like trust is becoming a big conversation, but it was so funny. It was something that I found myself gravitating to over and over again. Like, how do I build trust? How do I make people trust me? And that was something that I was like gravitating to, those conversations. Like I would notice, what are you gravitating towards? What are you saving? What are you finding really interesting in your world? What are things like not only that you want to respond to, but also that you're just sort of thinking about, even like on your off time. And like I know I built that, from that place. And it's like I feel like trust has come up, like ever since I created that, like trust has come up over and over again for me. And it's something I find myself talking about, like trust, authenticity, human connection. And it's like some of the stuff I don't even know if I would have been talking about it if like, I don't know, the industry and the world hadn't gone in this particular direction. So I think it is also kind of like following your arrow and following, what are you kind of gravitating towards? Like, is there something that's on your mind that's like frustrating or bothersome, or I don't know, even that thing that makes you feel a little bit insecure? Like I'll be honest, even like AI, like when it was first happening, I was like, oh no, like copywriters are going to be replaced. I'm not going to have a job. What am I going to do? And it's like, what I've kind of seen is people trying AI and then be like, no, but I still need that outside perspective. I still need that like human creativity. And I'm seeing like a big, I don't know if maybe you could call it a course correction, or
Mm.
a reaction or a response. Like this whole conversation we're having about like human creativity and authenticity is a response to AI. So it's like looking to those things that you are thinking about, that you're gravitating to. There's definitely a reason that those are in your heart, that those are in your mind. And I think, creating things, putting things out there, like as you're building them. And this is something I know, it's something I even want to be better at. I'm sort of in like that point where, I'm gathering all those conversations, and I'm, you know, writing a lot in the back end. And it's like, at some point you have to like just start putting it out there. I think it's putting it out there and seeing not just how people respond, but also how you grow as you share it.
Do you know what? One of the things that I am loving right now is I used to go through something, my own evolution, my own experience, my own learning, and I used to get to the other side, metabolize it into the medicine, and then I used to share it. And something that I'm absolutely loving right now is sharing in it, sharing the
Yeah.
real life realizations as they are happening in real time. I went through a visibility thing recently, and in my broadcast channel, I took people with me day by day by day by day. And that kind of sharing, I absolutely love it. And it was everything from the strategic to the spiritual, all the realizations, all the joining dots backwards. And I shared it in real time. And it was so much fun for me. I really enjoyed that. So, yeah, maybe that's something we all could look at instead of waiting till we get to the end of the story and then we have that highlight reel of, oh my God, this thing happened. um, what if the medicine is sharing what we're going through in real time? And I'll look back now at so many of the the challenges and the thresholds and the identity shifts, I look back and I think, oh my God, what would it have been like to share those in the moment? So I think that for me is going to be something going forward. So if you're sitting on all these things, yeah, just share them and just share
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, I'm feeling that so much. It's something that like I feel like it's something that like I'm still growing into because it's like, I don't know about you, but I know I started my business during the like everything has to be polished and perfect phase. And so it's been kind of hard. Sometimes I kind of feel like newer founders, like people who started their business in the last like I don't know, 2, 3 years have a sort of advantage because this is like the only way that they know. And it's like, I'm still like, oh, I shouldn't share that. Like, what will they think? What will people say? And it's like, I think that most of the creators that are, I guess you could say, doing really well or feeling quite successful right now are the people that are sharing. But I think they're also, I mean, they're having the time of their lives and they're sharing, and it's so good. And even if things aren't like absolutely perfect, they're sharing from such a real place and people are responding to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things like I'm honestly trying to be a lot better about because it's something that I'm really liking the shift to it too.
And it's tricky, you are exposing yourself on a whole new level. You are allowing yourself to be more vulnerable on a whole new level.
Yeah.
Your body perhaps remembers times when that didn't bring a welcome response.
Yeah.
So, you're having to move through all of those. So definitely be patient with yourself, be compassionate with yourself, be kind to yourself. Um, and it's a detox. You're kind of unlearning everything you were taught before. I'm from
Yes.
a chiropractic background where it was all patient centered. Don't tell them what you're going through, don't tell them what's going on in your life, in your home. um and so again, it's one of those dualities. It's walking that tightrope of sharing it while being a leader. This is what I'm going
Yeah.
through. This is how I'm navigating it. My life isn't perfect, but these are the things I'm trying,
Yeah.
versus that emotional dumping kind of, this is what I'm going through. So
Yeah.
there is a way to share it that it is still inspirational. It is still useful for people. It still shows your authenticity, but doesn't fall into emotional dumping. So yeah, that's also quite a
Yeah.
tightrope to walk.
Definitely. Yeah. I
Mm.
think that's like I feel that so much, like not wanting to, and I think that maybe we'll struggle with this a little bit, like, oh, I don't want to be too much and I don't want to put this out there and have it be, weird or vulnerable or something like that. I think tightrope is right.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, this has been so, so lovely. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. And I'm not even kidding you when I'm telling you I'm going to come and grab your freebie. So, I will link that, if that's okay, in the show notes so that
Yeah.
people can grab it. So tell us again what it was called, where we can find you, all those things.
Yeah, so my freebie is called Trust Triggers, the psychological levers your copywriting needs to make them see they need you now. I know that's like a little bit of a weird dump, but I think that really is encompassing of what's in there. It also comes with like an email sequence. I sort of like walk you through the guide. So it's a guide and it's an email sequence. I kind of like walk you through all of those different trust triggers and how to implement them. And then you can find me on my website on theliterary.co. And then you can also find me on Instagram and Threads at those same, it's the same as my website, just theliterary.co.
Okay, amazing. And you have shared so much insight, so much wisdom. I can tell that you're so passionate about what you do and helping people and helping them get their message out there so that we can create the world that we want to see in the future.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's about.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you for coming on to the show. And as always, I look forward to connecting with you on the next podcast.